Within the next 10 minutes, you will gain what kings paid Machiavelli for in gold: the ability to see through the softest tyranny, the kind that doesn't command but infects, the kind that has you begging for mercy while calling it love. This isn't theory, this isn't misogyny. This is 500-year-old reconnaissance from history's darkest minds. And when you finally understand the game, you'll never kneel to velvet gloves again. You've been outmaneuvered, not on a battlefield, not in a boardroom, but in your own bed. In the quiet moments you thought were love, in the vulnerabilities you believed were safe. Niccolo Machiavelli, history's most ruthless observer of power, saw this playbook centuries before you were born. While men were studying war, women mastered something far more subtle: the art of ruling without appearing to rule at all. Think back, that ex who drained you with harmless neediness, the girlfriend who weaponized tears to avoid accountability, the wife who reshaped your life through sighs and silences rather than demands. These weren't accidents, they were tactics honed over millennia, perfected in palaces and bedrooms long before you existed. Machiavelli called it dolce, the soft tyranny of female power. Here's the first truth they never taught you: women don't conquer like men. Men use fists, laws, declarations. Women use absence. The absence of affection when you displease them. The absence of explanation when they discard you. The absence of resistance that lulls you into dropping your guard. Machiavelli watched Renaissance noble women like Rhea Borja wield this with surgical precision, smiling as they poisoned rivals with one hand while stitching tapestries with the other. You felt this duality: the woman who claimed to hate drama yet needed you to resolve hers, the partner who humbly deferred to your leadership as long as it aligned with her unspoken demands. This isn't hypocrisy, it's statecraft. Because while kings must shout to be obeyed, queens need only whisper and let men choose to kneel. But this is just the surface. What comes next is where Machiavelli's observations turn truly unsettling. Because the soft tyrant doesn't just want your obedience, she needs you to enjoy surrendering. Machiavelli once wrote, "The wise prince learns to recognize the noose before feeling the rope." And yet, how many men never see the snare until it's already around their necks? You were never ambushed at sword point. You were lured with warmth, with vulnerability, with the intoxicating lie that you were the one in control. Consider this. When a king wants loyalty, he demands oaths. When a woman wants loyalty, she engineers dependency the way she forgot her wallet on dates, conditioning you to provide the headaches that always struck when you needed passion, training you to lower expectations, the crises that only you could solve, addicting you to the role of savior. Machiavelli observed this in the courts of Florence: how noble women would feign weakness to bind powerful men to their service, a fainting spell at the right moment, a whispered confession of fear that flattered a man's strength. These were not accidents. They were calculated investments in your future obedience. Here's the brutal pivot. The soft tyrant doesn't take, she receives. And that distinction is everything. When you give to a man, he owes you. When you give to a woman, you owe her for the privilege of being needed. Machiavelli saw this in how queens handled supplicants. The more gifts a subject brought, the more indebted he became, because the act of giving was the trap. In modern women, they've turned this into a science. Think of the ex who still had your apartment key long after the breakup, the girlfriend who hated arguing, but somehow always made you apologize. These weren't oversights, they were occupations, slow, bloodless coups where your sovereignty was dismantled, piece by piece under the banner of love. But here's what even Machiavelli feared to write: the moment you realize this trap exists is the moment she'll gaslight you for noticing you're paranoid. Not everything is a power struggle, and like a fool you'll dismiss your own instincts, because the ultimate triumph of soft tyranny isn't control, it's making you complicit in your own surrender. Yet knowledge is the guillotine that beheads manipulation. And now you'll learn the one vulnerability every soft tyrant hides: the fatal flaw. Machiavelli dared only hint at in his private letters. This is where the game changes. Machiavelli's greatest insight wasn't about strength, it was about stamina. The prince who wins isn't the one who strikes hardest, but who outlasts. And here's the secret. He buried in coded letters. Every soft tyrant has an expiration date. You've seen glimpses of this, the way her helplessness vanished when you stopped responding, the sudden respect when you walked away, the ex who swore she'd moved on until she heard you'd upgraded your life without her. These weren't coincidences, they were exposure. The moment the velvet glove slipped to reveal the iron fist beneath the soft tyrant's fatal flaw, she needs your belief more than your submission. Her tears only work if you think they're real. Her silence only stings if you fear it's permanent. Her innocence only disarms if you still see her as pure. Machiavelli watched Caterina Sforza, the lioness of Forlì, make this mistake. After years of ruling through calculated femininity, the moment her enemies stopped believing in her fragility, her power crumbled overnight. Because soft tyranny isn't rule, it's theater. And like all performances, it collapses when the audience stops applauding. This is why women punish indifference more than betrayal. Why? They'll tolerate a villain but resent a ghost. The soft tyrant can handle your anger. It means you still care, but your apathy, that's the kryptonite to her entire regime. Yet there is a final layer. Even Machiavelli feared to put to paper a truth so explosive. It could only be whispered in the darkest corridors of Florence's palaces. In Machiavelli's final lesson wasn't about women, it was about time. The greatest power in the world isn't strength nor strategy, nor even deception. It is the unhurried certainty of a man who knows his worth, cannot be voted on, negotiated, or revoked. The soft tyrant's entire regime depends on your belief that her court is the only kingdom that matters. What happens when you stop being a subject and become a sovereign? The counter-coup begins with silence. Not the silence of sulking or strategy, but the silence of irrelevance. When you truly stop reacting, when her tears no longer summon your concern, when her indifference no longer inspires your panic, you do not take her power. You reveal it was never hers to begin with. Machiavelli watched kings make this fatal error. They would rage against betrayal when they should have yawned aboard. Prince is more terrifying than an angry one, because anger still cares, weaponized apathy. The ultimate diplomacy when she tests with withdrawal, disappear longer when she baits with guilt. Agree cheerfully. You're right. I am selfish when she stages a crisis. Delegate. Sounds like a problem for your friends. This isn't manipulation, it is mirroring. The soft tyrant survives on stolen emotional labor. Starve the regime, the spell breaks when you stop chanting. Machiavelli's most dangerous idea wasn't in the prince. It was in a burned letter to a disgraced diplomat. The moment you realize you were never the prisoner, but the jailer. The walls dissolve every second you spend analyzing her. Fighting her, resenting her is a second you still believe she holds the keys to your worth. The truth, she never had them. The courtroom where you've been begging for approval is empty. The judge's bench is dust. The only chains are the ones you've been polishing yourself. But Machiavelli was wrong about one thing. You don't need to be feared. You only need to stop fearing. The rest is silence. So walk out, not in rage, not in grief, but in recognition. The way a prince finally notices the peasants bowing to him were just scarecrows all along. The throne was always yours. The tragedy was kneeling before it.